Jamarcus stopped his Lamborghini, unaware that this moment would change everything. When the officer approached, his words cut through the air. "You don't understand why I stopped you, do you?" The tension was palpable, but what happened next left even the officers speechless. What came after shocked everyone. But let's start from the beginning. On a bright, sunny afternoon in Atlanta, Jamarcus Johnson, a 30-year-old black man, was cruising down the road in his newly acquired Lamborghini Aventador. The sleek car gleamed under the sun, its engine growling with power. Jamarcus felt a surge of pride in his chest. He'd worked long hours, overcome countless obstacles, and finally, this car was his reward. He shifted gears, feeling the thrill of the ride, the open road stretching out before him like a promise of success. But then, out of nowhere, flashing blue lights filled his rearview mirror. His heart skipped a beat. He checked his speed, no violation there. He pulled over to the side, confusion mixing with the sudden tightening in his chest. A police cruiser stopped behind him. Jamarcus felt the familiar sting of anxiety, but this time, something felt different. The air, thick with the heat of the day, seemed to grow heavier as Officer Parker stepped out of his car. Parker was a middle-aged, pale officer with a sharp, almost hostile demeanor. His uniform looked stiff, as if it hadn't been broken in, and his hand hovered near his gun as he approached. There was something about his posture, the way he scanned Jamarcus with barely concealed suspicion, that made Jamarcus's stomach churn. "Sir, do you have any idea why I stopped you?" The officer's voice cut through the silence, crisp and direct. Jamarcus blinked, his thoughts racing. "I'm just driving home, officer." "What's going on?" The officer's gaze didn't soften. Instead, his eyes narrowed, focusing on the Lamborghini. "That car," he said, his voice dropping with disdain. "It's a bit too flashy for someone like you. Step out of the vehicle." The words hit Jamarcus like a slap. His mind flashed with disbelief, but it quickly gave way to the cold reality of the situation. This wasn't about a traffic violation. It wasn't about speeding or recklessness. It was about his car, his success, and the fact that he, as a black man, didn't seem to fit the officer's idea of who deserved such a luxury. His hands trembled as he slowly reached for the door handle. He could feel the weight of history pressing on his shoulders, the generational injustice, the stares, the assumptions. He wasn't just being pulled over. He was being targeted. Jamarcus stepped out of the Lamborghini, forcing himself to remain composed despite the pounding of his heart. His breath came in shallow, controlled bursts. He wasn't sure if it was the heat or the rising tension, but sweat began to bead on his forehead. He straightened his posture, trying to hold on to his dignity, though everything inside him screamed in frustration. "I have all the paperwork, officer. This is my car. I can show you the documents," Jamarcus said, his voice as steady as he could manage. The words felt hollow, like he was already pleading his case in vain. He extended the papers to Parker, hoping for a sliver of understanding, but the officer wasn't listening. Parker's eyes scanned him with barely concealed disdain, his focus entirely on the car, as if the documentation didn't matter at all. The officer's tone was sharp, cutting through the air. "License and registration." Jamarcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach, but he complied, handing over his ID and insurance papers. He was doing everything by the book, yet it didn't matter, not to them. Just then, Officer Daniels appeared, his eyes hard as stone. His gaze flicked briefly to the Lamborghini and then back to Jamarcus, as if measuring him. "That car's way out of your price range," Daniels said flatly, his voice icy. "We're going to have to impound it for further questioning." Jamarcus's chest tightened, and a wave of anger surged through him. "This is my car, and I paid for it." His words came out more forcefully than he intended, a mix of pride and frustration fighting to break free. His voice shook slightly, but it was firm, clear. He wasn't going to let them take something that was rightfully his without a fight. The officers exchanged a look, clearly unconvinced. It was as if his statement didn't even register. They were looking for a reason to escalate the situation, to undermine his success. His mind raced as the full weight of the moment pressed in on him. He had worked for everything he had fought through challenges, prejudice, and setbacks just to get here. And yet here he was, being accused of something he hadn't done simply because of who he was and the car he drove. He wasn't just being stopped. He was being stripped of his right to exist in the world he had fought so hard to claim. As the officers huddled together, discussing the possibility of a tow truck, Jamarcus remained steady, though every muscle in his body felt tense. His hand moved slowly toward the glove compartment, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He opened it carefully, retrieving the envelope that contained everything they might need to end the charade. He took a deep breath before speaking, his voice calm, almost too calm for the situation. "I have everything right here," he said, holding out the envelope. The words sounded like a declaration, as if to say he wasn't going to let them strip him of what he'd earned. He handed over the documents: proof of purchase, loan statements, and his driver's license. He did his best to keep his hands from shaking as he passed them into Officer Parker's grasp. Parker grabbed the papers with a quick, dismissive motion, flipping through them rapidly. His brow furrowed in skepticism, each page making him look less and less confident. Jamarcus noticed the shift in his demeanor as the officer's eyes flickered between the papers and him, looking for some sign of deceit that wasn't there. But the more Parker scrutinized the documents, the more his expression faltered. The frown on his face deepened as the silence stretched. Officer Daniels, standing off to the side, stared at the paperwork with a blank look. It was as though he couldn't process what he was seeing. His voice, when it came, was laced with disbelief. "This can't be right," Daniels muttered, his eyes flicking between the documents and Jamarcus. The doubt in his voice was unmistakable, though whether it came from confusion or some deeper prejudice, Jamarcus couldn't tell. Jamarcus felt the tension crackle in the air. It was a small shift, but it was there. His stomach tightened with the sensation of change. The officers exchanged low, hushed whispers, their words unintelligible, but the discomfort in their postures was clear. They were stumped. He had proven them wrong, had shown them that they were the ones in the wrong. But their pride wouldn't let them accept it easily. After what seemed like an eternity, Parker finally looked up from the documents. His face was flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. I'm sorry, sir," he muttered, his voice low and lacking the authority it once had. "It seems we made a mistake." The tension hung heavy in the air. Jamarcus didn't feel any sense of relief at the apology. What should have been an ordinary day had been ruined. But there was something in the way the officers looked at him now: guilt, embarrassment, realization. Jamarcus took a deep breath. "Next time, don't assume things because of the color of my skin. I'm no criminal just because I'm black and successful." The officers, unable to respond, stood there awkwardly as Jamarcus climbed back into his car, started the engine, and drove away. He couldn't shake the anger boiling inside. But there was also something else, a newfound determination. He had fought for his right to exist without prejudice, and that was a victory in itself.